Welcome. So here's my question. Are you feeling tired and maybe unexcited about work or other things these days? Here we are in North America. Thank you, Attitude, for posting that in North America. And I want to say it has been a week of no rain or snow, which is kind of amazing. But this next week is coming with rain and snow, which is my birthday. And I have to say, one of my worst birthdays ever was when it snowed like, I don't know, 10 inches. And we were all trapped inside and not happy and not getting along. This was several years ago. So I'm hoping this year it's just rain. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyway, we're here to talk about suffering from burnout. So, yeah, Kelly says you can't hear me. I hope other people can hear me. Attitude, if you can't hear me, would you let me know, please? So, are you feeling stressed or burned out? And do you know what the difference is between stress and burnout? So, what we want to do today is talk about the difference between stress and burnout and what will help you feel better. Because stress and burnout is related, they are related, excuse me, and but they differ. And how understanding this difference can assist you in keeping yourself energized and centered for work, home, and relationships. So let's start off by having everyone put into the chat what are some things that stress you out. Stress you out. So stress continues to be unusually high for many people right now due to all kinds of socioeconomic, familial, and political issues. Stress and burnout are two ends of the energy spectrum. Stress occurs when there are too many pressures on your mind and your body. It's a matter of too much. And this is really important. So when we're stressed, it's too much. It's let's see, what do we have here? Um, Not too many um, too many rude people, too much to do in a period of time, too many work demands, too much work, too many work deadlines, um, too many colleagues who are trying to micromanage you, um, not being, too many people ignoring you, deadlines, money, failing to get things done, um, too much unfairness at work. So it's all too much. And when people are stressed, they wonder about finding some trick to figuring out how to get their lives under control. I don't know if any of you do that. I certainly do that when I'm stressed. I'm like, oh, my life is out of control. What can I do to get it in control? And that actually um, is not always the best question to ask. So, what we want to acknowledge is that we're experiencing physical symptoms and we're searching for a magical solution often to make it all go away. And whether you're dealing with work changes or demands or all consuming projects at the office or at home or kids who are stressing you out, you're juggling and solving various issues simultaneously, and things can feel overwhelming. Now, persistent stress will lead to burnout over time. You're giving so much to things, too much to things, until there is nothing left to give. So, burnout is the other end of the energy spectrum. It's a deficiency, it's a matter of not enough. You lack energy or resources because you are depleted. Your fuel tank is empty. And when people are burned out, they experience more emotional symptoms such as hopelessness, a lack of motivation, and exhaustion. Maybe you've been multitasking and overworking for too long and exhausting your brain and your body, and you feel like there's nothing left. The candle that you've been burning at both ends has no wax left. So let's look at what's happening in the chat about things that are stressing you out. So, not being listened to, deadlines, work relationship, family, unfairness at work, my brother, work family issues, child and parent both have ADHD, too much ADHD, huge caseload and deadlines, too much, multiple competing priorities, again, family problems and a new move, too much change and constant stress, dealing with dog aggression and also our daughter's school refusal due to social anxiety, mom guilt, school and work demands, too many meetings, no time to get the job done, right? So you're so busy in these other things that are occupying your time, you have too many things in your schedule. Things outside your control, not enough sleep, so you're too fatigued. Too much to do, never enough time, low energy or focus, groups of people, being believed that I have ADHD because people may not believe you. I'm sorry to hear that. Advocating for your child, corporate bullying. That sounds really tough, Sophia. Working unpredictable hours, lack of distribution of chores, bullying in the workplace, bullying in your neighborhood. It's hard in my profession because we're so short staffed. So you're overworking. Um, Sheila, home repair by insurance while taking on online therapy and looking after a dad in his 80s. So all of these things that I'm hearing for everybody is too much, too much, too much. Kelly, I would encourage you to leave the session and come back and see if you get sound. Dealing with death is overwhelming, gaslighting, rushing to finish, never catch up, work-life balance and teenagers' mental health, mom guilt, huge caseload, family member's death, menopause, um, you burned yourself out in a prior job and now you don't have motivation for the new one. Okay, Anna, I'd love to hear how you burned yourself out because we're going to talk about that. School constantly needing things or teachers picking on your kids. Heather, my entire day is a rush from the time I wake up till I go to bed. I am exhausted just reading that. Menopause and fibromyalgia, workplace harassment. I'd love to hear from some of you who are experiencing bullying in the workplace or in the neighborhood or harassment, what that is, so we can try to brainstorm how to deal with it. Okay, and I want to thank you, Alona, for your lovely wishes. That's very sweet. Okay, so we have persistent stress, which is too much of many things. And when we spend all our energy on all those things, we end up depleted. Our tank is empty, and that's when we're at burnout. So lowering stress and addressing a burnout also require different interventions. The key, of course, to lowering stress lies in reducing your commitments and slowing down stimulation, which you can't always be in charge of. And that's part of the problem. You know, if you're short staffed at work and you're there and you're trying to do your job, you can't magically make more staff appear. You're just trying to perform and stay on top of things. Um, uh, and for some people with ADHD, these options of reducing commitments or saying no can be very unappealing and difficult to do. It's hard to say no. I know I struggle with this myself. I sometimes I want to try to be all things to all people, which I cannot do. And then I feel burnt out and overwhelmed, and I kind of want to just crawl under the covers. So what we want to really acknowledge is that the ADHD brain craves novelty and struggles with managing intense emotions. We know that. We've talked about that here a number of times. So it can be especially tough for you to do the activities that will assist you in managing stress, reducing overwhelm by pausing, giving yourself time before agreeing to do something, being able to say, thank you for asking. That's a really appealing invitation. Let me think about it for 24 hours and get back to you. So setting up routines for eating and sleeping, personal hygiene, doing the laundry, spending time with friends, all of these things can reduce the sense of drowning, which is an important aspect of stress. You're overwhelmed and you feel like you're just kind of doggy paddling to keep your head above water, and sometimes you're not. So the goal with stress is you want to decrease the too muchness in your life. And that is why picking one habit to change or one area where you're going to start the decrease will launch you towards making progress instead of aiming for changing 3 or 4 things. So for those of you who've said some things about bullying, I want to go back and look at this. Okay. All right. I cannot advocate for myself, says Sophia, or approach higher management with issues regarding my colleagues. Sometimes it backfires and turns into my fault, something I've caused. That sounds very difficult. And learning how to advocate for yourself, of course, is important as an adult. And it's really important for us to start teaching our kids how to do that early on. Susie, bullying and pressure questions being asked of my capability, college student support, short staffed. Right. So here's the thing, when people are stressed, and this is for kids, with parents, or for bosses, with employees. When they're stressed and they're at the too much level, they're going to try to offload their stress onto you. So I call this the import-export business. It happens with when kids are angry and they get angry at their parents, and then because where they kind of unload their anger to their parents, and then their parents feel terrible and the kids feels better. And that's true with anxiety, but it's also true with stress. That when other people are stressed, if you have a partner who's stressed and walking around the house, stomping around and in a bad mood, like it's all oozing from their pores, you have to work really hard to put on your Teflon suit and not import whatever they're exporting. And this is the first step towards self-care that's part of the avoiding burnout process. So we want to aim to basically stop importing other people's problems, which somehow become your problems. And this is very difficult at work, because at work you're being told what to do, and you may or may not have a choice to say, I can't do that, or I can't do this now, or I need more time. So we have to learn how to navigate that. Heather says, I live in the projects, and a lot of bullies at my son and I. My son has problems making friends and then plays with them anyway, and I try to tell him he needs to stay away from them. Right. So it's very hard to stay away from people who are bullying you, because they may be cool and they may be maybe the only local friends that you have. And so you're not sure what to do in that situation, and you want to try to fix it. You think if you can only do one thing that's going to be right, you're going to convince them to actually be your friend. Um, let's see. Uh, Bullying, they pick on my mistakes and do make some on purpose, and they try to convince me that I'm overreacting or overinterpreting, stealing papers, not saying hi, making jokes about how planning is easy, etc. So that is actual bullying, French. It's also really inconsiderate and ignorant of what it's like to live with a neurodivergent brain. And so in work situations like this, it might be worth going to human resources and saying, I'm wondering if we could have a training on neurodiversity. I've done some trainings like this for companies, and I'm happy to do them, because it's really important that people understand what it's like to be neurodivergent in a workplace. Um, um, let's see. Uh, okay. People pleasing. Yes, that can be a problem. It's hard to sort of advocate for yourself when it means disappointing someone or walking around afraid that somebody's angry with you. Um, Lulu, I'm sorry you've been sick with COVID. I hope you're feeling better now. So let's talk a little bit about how do we recover from burnout. So we know that with stress, we have to decrease the too muchness in our lives. We have to look at, you know, the oh my God, what's the thing I'm trying to say? The buffet, where there's all this kind of stuff, and decide, okay, this needs to be removed from the buffet. I can't do this right now. And last week I actually did this. Two different people asked me to be on their podcast, and another person asked me to write an article. And I thought about it, and I said, I can't do any more. And so I wrote to them very kindly, and I said, I'd love to do this at another time. Please circle back in a few months. I'm sorry, but I'm just overcommitted at this point, or I'm fully committed. And it was hard to do, but I felt better afterwards. And I like that phrase, fully committed. I'm fully committed right now. Circle back with me in a month or 2 weeks. You know, I can't take any more, because if you say I can't take any more, it sounds kind of like you're a victim. But if you say I'm fully committed and I don't have room for this now, can we circle back in a week or two when I may be able to integrate it? So recovering from burnout differs than recovering from stress, because the issues relate more to feeling empty, overburdened, or unsatisfied. Isolation, shame, and self-criticism are common denominators for folks who experience burnout. Burnout is often the result of an imbalance in the work-life ratio in your life, which can include extracurricular activities, school or school life ratio of kids or for parents. So I'm curious, how could you set a limit on the imbalance of the work life ratio in your life or the imbalance of too many asks and too little time? What are some ideas you have? And put this in the chat because we want to share this as a community of how to set some limits. What is some language that you can use? So you could say, thank you so much for asking. I'm at my max right now. Can we talk about it in a week? Or you could say, that's a really great idea. I'm very interested, but I'm fully committed. I see that there's going to be a break in a month. Let's circle back. Or I understand that you want me to pick up the slack for people who are sick and not here, but and I'm doing the best I can, and I'm only one person. I can't actually take on two jobs as one person. So, what are some things that you can say that would help you set a limit that isn't an angry limit and isn't an overreactive limit, but is very clear? So, we have Megan Blizzard saying no. Okay, pretty straightforward. Heather says, I'll get back to you. So giving yourself that time to reflect on whether or not you can do it is very important, because even if if what they're asking sounds super fun, you might need to reflect on whether or not you have time for that. Um, what else are some things that you could say when someone asks you something when you're already stressed out and maxed out? I'd love to hear some of your ideas. So, what are some things that you could say? Lulu, you're self employed, so that's a little bit harder. Tammy says, my chronic health issues keep me from being able to perform daily tasks any longer. And living by myself in my home is overwhelming. That can be really difficult. Tammy, do you have a support person? Is there a government program that could assist you? A journal? Penelope says, I'll think about it, but my days off are actually full of appointments I can't change. Okay, so we want to think about how many things we're trying to squeeze into a day. So yes, you might have to put all your appointments in your days off. I do that. But I've come to learn that I can't do 3 appointments in one day. It's too much. I can't get from here to there. I'm very stressed. Every time I go, if one of them is a physical or a doctor's appointment, they take my blood pressure. I'm like, oh my God, I'm terrible. But what we want to do is to be able to is to be able to be able to take some space. So and in our days off, otherwise we're not going to feel rejuvenated. So this is the thing that happens with phones. And because it's almost like shredded. What happens is we'll have a break in our day and we'll immediately get on our phone. So instead of taking a walk and maybe listening to music or looking around where you are, we'll be talking to someone, or we'll be texting, or we'll be listening to a podcast, all of which is great, but it doesn't actually give your brain time to exhale, to reset. I've told this story before, but I want to come back to it. If you're working really hard on something and you got to take a shower before you go out to dinner with your friends, you're upstairs in the shower, you're not actually working on it, and you're enjoying your shower, a great idea might come to you. So we have to balance how much we're squeezing in and what we really need as space to process it. Penelope says, oh, sorry, you said I think about it. Erica, I have a prior engagement that works. Heather, I really appreciate you thinking of me. I can't currently commit to this. This is great, but let's keep in touch for another time. I love this. It's beautiful. Eddie, hope I didn't miss much. Hello, Eddie. Lists can help, yes. I've been saying recently, getting very strong with saying, I'm very interested, but I don't have capacity currently. Also fantastic, Jamie, bravo. Could we check back with each other in X amount of time? Beautiful, I love that. Tracy, I'd really like to do this, but I won't be able to give it my full attention. I'm so sorry. Could we schedule it for another time? Beautiful. Um, okay. Uh, Thank you, Tendai, for saying that. Clear, no, I have plans, not even sorry. You know, it's very funny. This last weekend, I had the privilege of being in New York with my mother and my sister-in-law and my niece and some cousins, and we was for my birthday. I'm into birthdays, and we went to see the musical Six. And you don't have to see the musical to learn what I'm going to tell you. You could listen to it in any streaming service, but there's a song called Sorry, I'm sorry, not sorry. And I think that would be such a great thing for every woman to listen to because, you know, you're sorry, but I'm not really sorry. So, you know, even if you are sorry, you can say no. Because you need the time. You need to, you know, curl up on your sofa and watch some silly TV. It's been a long week. Or, you know, read a book that you love. Tricia says, I'm making a point. I'm not over explaining why I'm saying sorry. Perfect. Sorry, not sorry from Six. And and that's Ian Boland's character, I think, says that. It's like I don't trust myself in decisions if I say too much about why I'm saying no. I think it also weakens your no, you know, if you say too much explaining. You can have a clear statement, but if you kind of go into like why you're busy and what you're doing, people stop listening. I'm going to be barring this, I believe. Great. Um, when I have breaks, I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything. Lilas, it's so funny that you say that because here I am in my friend's house and she has something up on her wall, like a little postcard thing that says, time you enjoy wasting is not wasted. Isn't that great? Time you enjoy wasting is not wasted. So when you take a break, you're not wasting time. You're helping your brain process and integrate things that are going on before your break and making space for what's ever going to happen afterwards. Penelope, exercise is an important tool for me and meditation. Yes, I agree. How do you address management regarding excessive caseloads without sounding like you're making excuses? Alicia, that's a great question. You know, I think what I want to know, what I would want to know, and I know this is true in a lot of agencies that do clinical work or social work or therapy, is that people are expected to carry very high caseloads, and or you have a productivity quota that you're supposed to meet. And this is going to be difficult. And sometimes, you know, if you are neurodivergent, you may not be able to meet that productivity quota in that period of time. And you'll know and you'll remember that kids who have ADHD have a 504 at school, so they get time and a half. So if you're working at an agency and you have ADHD or a processing issue, you are entitled, if you live in the United States, through the Americans with Disabilities Act, to get an accommodation. And so the thing that you want to do is to go to human services and say, I need time and a half, or I need my quota changed. You're entitled to having some of that. And that doesn't mean you're weak or you're unskilled. And it's against the law to fire you for that. So this is important for you to know. Yes, Donna, there's always on replay. I have to take off and work to literally get work paperwork done. I'm sorry to hear that, Alicia. I hope you'll come back and watch the replay. Eddie, attain the flow and make it work the best way possible by automating as much as possible. Yes, Eddie, I talked about this before you joined. Routines are very useful. We don't want to be rigid about them, but knowing that you do this and then this and then this, and you can remember the flow and the steps helps you so you don't have to put pressure on yourself to try to recall what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. Yep, getting sleep is good. Jamie, I'm self-employed, so acknowledge that I have a lot more latitude to modulate my capacity and set boundaries. Yes, that is a privilege of being self-employed. I'd love to, but because I have to use my vacation leave, I will be doing this, this, and this. I won't be able to fully commit. Right. I love to, but I won't be able to fully commit. Nice. Nobody ever got rich by staying in their comfort zone. Get out of there. Thank you, Eddie. Janine, how would you address ways to reduce stress and burnout from the demands of your clients needing you constantly on the job? limits. So what I think is helpful is to say, I'm with clients for these hours. I have a half hour here where I'm open to taking calls or being on call for you and those times. And if that time goes by, you can ask them to send you an email and you can review it. But you can't be what you're not. You can't make energy and time appear out of thin air. It just doesn't work and it doesn't happen. So if your clients need you more than you're actually able to be there for them, then they might need to be in a different organization that provides more round the clock services. I'm very clear with my clients about this, about the limits of my capabilities for availability, and how. Saying I'm sorry, saying you're sorry too much. Yes, so we often say we're sorry too much, particularly women who are neurodivergent. I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. If you grew up perhaps with someone who was narcissistic or abusive, you would say you're sorry a lot because you've learned that things are always your fault as well. Yes, people over-explain. That can be common with ADHD. It can also be common because of shame. Um, Stay away from diminishing words when saying no. Absolutely, you don't want to put yourself down while you're saying no. You just want to say no, blah, 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 and graciously. That's the thing that's important. We want to say no graciously. So there were several things in the comments, about how to say no. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's so kind of you to think of me, blah, blah, blah. Everyone needs and deserves breaks. Yes. Um, Thank you, Eddie. Okay. Make a decision. Sarah, I need to factor in processing and recovery time. That's true for so many of us, particularly people who, do a lot, have a high capacity, are interested in a lot of things in life. We may take a lot on. That's me. I always think I can do more in a given amount of time than is actually humanly possible. And I have learned as I've gotten older to factor in that I need some recovery time. I need to process. Today I personally have had a very busy day. I taught a seminar. I drove up to see the school, this special presentation at a school where I consult, and now I'm doing this. I'm going to need recovery this evening. I'm going to chill out and just be quiet, because it's been a busy day. So we want to think about that. Okay, Heather, you use up the answering machine. Paula, our society is taught to be always busy, but more than ever, we need to learn to take me time without feeling guilty or that we're wasting time, not achieving anything. Time you enjoy wasting is not wasted. Now, of course, that can be a little bit dangerous for people with ADHD because, oh, okay, then I can spend an hour on Instagram. Maybe not. Might want to set some limits around that. Donna, this is a group for adults. Well, this is attitudemag.com, and it's Facebook Live twice a month. One topic is usually related to adults living with ADHD, and one topic is usually related to parents of kids who may or may not be living with ADHD themselves, but whose kids have it. Oh, thank you, Alicia. I have to take personal time away from work and work while I'm off on my personal time. Right, because you can't get it all done or you're not getting enough break time. So we might want to think about, I can work for this long and then I need a short break and then I can do another chunk and then I need a longer break. We want to try when we think about things that we have to accomplish to assess how long something's actually going to take and whether it's an easy task that you'll move through quickly and enjoy, or it's a harder task or a medium task. And if so, do you want to start off with the harder thing and get it out of the way, or start easy and warm up and then tackle the hard thing? So let's talk a little bit about how to recover from burnout. So recovering from burnout differs because of these issues, and of feeling empty. And so what we want to think about in terms of recovering from feeling so depleted is, are activities or people who make you happy, things that bring joy into your life, because we have to balance that emptiness, that sense that there's nothing left, with a sense of a spark of something that really lights you up. The key to recovering from and preventing burnout is active self care and a healthy lifestyle. So, there are a couple of tips that I have about how to reduce mental and emotional burnout at work and at home. And there are lots of comments here from you that I cannot possibly get to all of these. Um, Brandy says, I'm self employed, but clients do not understand time needed to complete tasks. So, then your job is to explain it to them because people have a deadline or an urgency and they are exporting that urgency onto you and they're not considering what it actually means for you to do the things that they're asking or how long it's going to take. So it's important in this case that you really can assess how long something's going to take and then add a little bit to it so you can turn it in early and they're satisfied. um, Heather, if I don't get a certain thing done, I say tomorrow's another day. They want to fire you, but if you complain or not get the job, then there goes your performance review. So you don't want to complain. You want to basically approach these things either with an advocate or very clear, having educated yourself about what your rights are in the excuse me, the American with Disabilities Act here in this country. You don't want to be, oh, you don't want to whine or come off like this isn't fair. Instead, you want to say, here's what the law says, here's what I'm doing, and here's what I need. That to take the emotion out of it. Jamie, depending on the field you're in, this has been a way for me to model healthy boundaries and self care for my clients. I share appropriately about my needs, in part as a way to set healthy boundaries, but also to model for my clients. Yes, Jamie, I do that in these Facebook Lives. You may have noticed that. Um, ADHD is tough to manage, but it's possible, of course. Anna, what about being worried? Because if I said no, they could get me laid off at this time when people think reception is something. So I don't quite understand that question. But saying no, again, there are all kinds of ways of saying no. A lot of times people believe that saying no is absolutely not, under no circumstances. Sometimes saying no is, I need to think about this or delay it or schedule it appropriately in my diary. So we want to really think about what the no is that we're trying to say and is there other language we could use? Okay. Tina, my boss has no idea of this. I have no rights. How do I get them? I get it done by Friday or I get penalized. I'm very sorry to hear this, Tina. I think that it's really important for you to do a little bit of research. Go onto the site of the Americans with Disabilities Act, see what your rights are, check out what's been written in Attitude. Consider if you have looking at ADD.org, which is ADA, which is Adults with ADHD, or CHAD. These are organizations that have come together for people with ADHD and may be able to help you figure this out. Eddie says, I find sometimes it's not fast paced enough, doing something mindless along with the task. Thank you. Okay. Eddie, these are great tools and these are great and full of spectacular tools that help, but the stagnation is partly what makes us feel so burnt out. So I'm curious when you say the stagnation, what you mean. The stagnation, is it the boredom of doing the same thing over and over? Is it the stagnation that your job isn't really exciting you? You're doing it because you need the money, but you don't really like it. What is stagnation? Because we can't change stagnation if we don't understand what it is and be able to offer an alternative. Um, Kayla asks, what is a good way to say your needs? I have several disabilities and none of my jobs um, have ever known. I was always told never to put that on my application. So I'm not an attorney in any way, shape, or form, but I believe that you have rights, and I think that it would be good to consult with someone who knows how to talk about that. Who's not me because I'm a psychologist, not a lawyer. But I think that maybe you don't want to put it on an application, but when do you disclose that you have you're a neurodivergent brain, or whatever it is? When do you disclose that in the process of your job application or being hired? And I think the question is a very good question, and I believe that there was an attitude webinar recently that addressed it. But I really think it's worth doing a little bit of a deep dive into what your rights are and then how to communicate them. There you go. Thank you, Annie, for putting that up. I really appreciate that. Um, okay, so let's look at these tips to reduce mental and emotional burnout at work. So the first tip that I have for you is to reduce your isolation. By coming to this Facebook Live today, you are actually doing that. You're talking here with caring friends, partners, relatives, professionals who understand what it's like to live with ADHD and all of its friends. You may need to find people in your life, your face-to-face life, to talk to, because there is something different about being with someone in person who understands. And sometimes this can be tough to do because you're burned out, so you lack energy for connections. But most people who are burned out want support, and they need support. So they have to have that support to pivot into self-care. They have to have someone where they can bounce ideas off, brainstorm, and strategize. 2, incorporate something that brings you pleasure into your daily life. Someone mentioned meditation and exercise. Those are things that I do that really help me. But you need a reprieve from kind of the ins and outs of daily life that can be kind of boring. So what can you do that's not work oriented that fills up your bucket? Maybe you like to sing. Maybe you like to garden, maybe you like to cook or knit or craft, something that you enjoy that you can put into your life and schedule it on your calendar so that it's there for you. Or maybe you like to craft or bead, or one of my friends makes paper, and she has it on a table, so when she wants to do it or she needs a break, she puts that in at the end of her day. She comes home from work, she spends a little time, like an hour, doing that, and then she goes on to dinner, etc. Something that you enjoy, but don't put something there that you don't like doing, because if you put running, like I don't like running, even though it's good for you, then you're not going to do it. Look at work differently. Reducing burnout means setting limits with what you do, how much time you spend on it, and how often you think or obsess about it. Who can assist you with figuring out how to set limits and what to say? Can you make a friend or two at work to increase camaraderie and support in the workplace? Someone who might walk with you for a half hour at lunch, somewhere where you can sit and say, hey, work on your project simultaneously in a different room to shake it up a little bit. This can reduce the drudgery, the monotony of an unfulfilling job. Plan for breaks. That not just during the day, but take a few days off or a longer vacation to recharge. If you have it and you haven't used your sick time or your vacation time and you've let it accumulate, use it. After all, you are feeling sick and tired, right? So perhaps shake things up and maybe decide, I have 4 6 days that I haven't used, so I'm gonna and they're gonna run out or expire. So I'm gonna work a 4-day week for the next 4 weeks and have a longer weekend. That I think would help me really kind of shift and low and sort of um, relax a little bit more. Separate yourself from the environment, really fully. When you go home, try to go home. And finally, explore what contentment looks like for you. Your personal standard for sanity and success is yours. It can't be based on someone else's ideas of how to heal burnout, not mine or anybody else's. It has to be on what you know in your heart helps you reground, helps you feel centered, helps you put some water into that well inside of you. Okay. So reconsider some of your priorities, nurture a hobby, spend time outside, watch a favorite movie, hang out with caring friends. If you have kids and that's hard to do, you know what? Make Friday night pizza, movie, and popcorn night. And that's what you're going to do. So, if you have 3 kids, each week a different child can choose the movie and somebody can make popcorn or brownies or whatever. But try to create a scheduled time where you can refuel. Otherwise, you're going to continue to live in the cycle of too muchness of stress and then end up with not enoughness with burnout. So I see that there's a lot of things happening in the chat. And I just want to acknowledge this. You have to have it acknowledged at the interview, says Eddie. Some companies have disability accommodation forms after you're hired. Thank you, Eyes of Autism. My son has an IEP. Can adults get something similar? Not sure, but I think that they should have accommodations. I burnt out 5 years ago, and it took me 2 painful years to recover. I now set an alarm for when I need to stop working at the end of the day, especially when I work from home. Good for you. Eddie, our brains need the interaction and the social connection to continue to love themselves. It's so true. When you feel love from someone, hopefully you're feeling my, my caring and my love through the screen. And hopefully you have people in your life who can give that to you and give you that hug. FMLA is one of those things that you can use if you're feeling really stressed and burnt out to use. Healthy output for the emotions, morning walks. Let's see, there are similar job protections in the UK. Thank you, Lulu, for saying that. ACAS is a union. Anybody can consult for help. You don't need to be a member. Connecting with nature. And thank you. I appreciate that. So we are going to wrap up now. And I want to just leave you with my final tip, which is follow a healthy diet, a lifestyle with food and sleep and exercise. Start to do something for yourself every day, because one of the reasons I like to exercise regularly, whether I take a walk or go for a run or ride my bike, is because it's the only thing I can do for me. No one else can do that for me. And it's the same with meditation. Only I can do that for myself. So any form of movement and many forms of meditation will increase the endorphins in your brain and improve your mood. So make sure you get enough sleep, set a regular bedtime, and use alarms to follow it. So, set an alarm. I want to be upstairs by 10. Okay, so I need to set an alarm at 9:45 and then at 9:50. And then, like whatever you need to continue to remind yourself, like, okay, upstairs. I need to go upstairs. Try to eat fewer refined foods, saturated fats, and avoid nicotine, alcohol, or marijuana if you can. Obviously, people use those things at their own discretion, but too much of anything can really continue that cycle of depletion. Let's say there's a couple more comments and then we're going to stop. Chocolate. Okay, I'm a big fan of dark chocolate, so thank you, Susan, for saying that. Athena, I've chosen to work part-time 3 days a week to manage my mental health and weight well-being. I'm glad you can do that. Some people can't afford to it, but I'm glad you can. Kayla, I've thought of doing part-time work to help with my mental health. If you can afford it, that's great. Otherwise, figure out how you can strategize your time and apply your sick time and vacation time so that you're working in a way that suits you better. Lulu, I sometimes go to another self-employed friend's business and take my work to do there. Bravo. I'm all about co-working. Having someone with me helps, and it helps her too. We only have to be strict about breaks and not chatting about other stuff. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a very lively and engaged session. I appreciate all of your comments, and I hope that this session will get you started in reducing stress and reducing burnout by engaging more in self-care and setting limits. Thank you so much for joining me. Attitude, could you put up the downloadable again for people? That would be great in the chat before I sign off. let's see, healthy emotional morning walks. Let's see, I'm missing connecting with nature. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, you're welcome. And let's see, I'm waiting for Attitude to put up our the downloadable before I sign off. You're most welcome. I can try to put it here and see if this works. So I hopefully it will. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. Do something you love this weekend, something that feeds you and you can only give to yourself. Take care, and I'll see you at the end of March. I'll be going away for a little vacation, and then I'll see you when I get back. I'm really looking forward to it. Take care. Bye bye.